I know I said in the last video that it was about beating the game completely with the Charles Smith loadout, and I couldn't get past chapter 2 like a 40-year-old Catholic reading a book that only women claim not to be porn. However, since there were quite a few of you that enjoyed the loadout idea, I have decided to carry it on, and just complete the game even if there are times when the rules of the loadout playthrough have the same integrity as a politician. Even though Charles uses certain weapons at certain times, I'm only going to be using the weapons he predominantly uses, with the only addition being the tomahawk and throwing knives, because I will be honest, I really wish I included them last time. Yes, he does use dynamite occasionally, but if I was to take that into account going forward, it would make the playthrough very easy and will probably turn the map into the Western Front. So to clarify, sword-off shotgun, bow, tomahawk, throwing knives, knife, and fists. And each loadout will be a series until I complete the game. Can you beat RDR2 Chapter 3 with the Charles Smith loadout? Met up with Dutch and Hosea after the shootout in Valentine that was more chaotic than a group of chickens hurling abuse at Burger King employees. Dutch tells Hosea to go take a shit and orders me and Charles to go to a dried up riverbed, otherwise known as your sex life. We found the dried up riverbed, found a guy on the floor, checked for a pulse, looted his body, and went to an abandoned campsite. Charles started sniffing around like he was a greyhound on a scent trail, found some Germans, told us their father had been kidnapped, so we tracked him down. We arrived at the campsite, got ambushed, killed them all, and took the German back to his family. Said goodbye to the German family in fluent Spanish, and he gave me some gold. The gang arrived at the new spot, and Dutch says they will make the best of it for essentially 2 months, which confirms that the Royal Mail is more likely to deliver your parcel than Dutch delivering an intelligent plan. Dutch talks about some philosophy that's starting to get a bit more distant from reality than leaders of the free world. Dutch, Hosea, and I head out to go fishing in the middle of the night, although I have no idea if this is the best time to go fishing, since any experience I have catching aquatic creatures is narrowed down to catching a small crab when I was 8 years old, and that crab was determined to get me into the Blue Badge Club. Found Trelawny with some other prisoners, the other prisoners escaped, and I was nominated to chase them down to really convince them that their choices in life were a bad idea. Since they forgot that trains will stop eventually and all we have to do is keep up. Archibald comes along and he starts commenting on my horse riding as if he was a very impatient driving instructor. One of the prisoners got clotheslined by a metal pole and probably died. Jumped on the train, threw a guy off the train, and for some reason I could not tag someone's leg with a shotgun. Chased after one of the prisoners who tried to tackle me, which went well for him. Defied the laws of physics as I traversed the air like I was that guy from the Bulletproof Monk. Fought the final prisoner who was more skilled with a knife than Gordon Ramsay, and he kept blocking my right hook for about 5 minutes since my combat strategy was that of a World War I general. Knocked him out, Archibald opened the train cart door, but couldn't be bothered to open it all the way so I could get through, because he's an absolute ham sandwich. Made it back to the sheriff's office, dropped the guy off, and the gang started discussing the Greys and the Braithwaites, 2 families we were going to rob which would go as smoothly as a country road the council forgot about. Dutch asked me to go fishing with him, I said nah, and went back to camp. Stopped Sadie from slicing up Pearson like a cow at the abattoir, and we went shopping. On the way back, some hillbillies started demanding payment for a toll. Never seen anyone take transport fines so seriously. Anyway, Sadie shot one of them and we made a break for it. Couldn't grab my bow for some reason, I guess the wagon isn't ready to share it yet. Sadie ran a guy over and I started letting arrows fly as if I was the Persian army. Took a moment after the fight and decided to pull my bow and aim at the forest because I was envisioning myself in a particular film by Ridley Scott. Dropped the supplies back at camp after a joyous shopping trip that almost equaled watching customers freak out over the Waitrose quail egg shortage. Met up with Dutch and Bill at the sheriff's office as we prepared to destroy a moonshine distillery. On the way there, we found a ransacked stagecoach with a dead body. Interestingly enough, Archibald decided that the stagecoach had more means for investigation than the man on the floor with a hole in his head the size of Wales. Carried on into the swamps to find the moonshiners, and we split up. Saw Bill take a man from behind, as if he's done it before, smacked a guy in the head with a glass bottle, tied him up, and dropped him off with the others. Blew up the steel, kicked a guy in the nuts. Since it was so effective, I did it twice. Found out what happens after trying a vindaloo curry for the first time. Went back to Dutch, secured pre-drinks for the mental shindig we have planned, probably. Dutch asked me to race him, and I said nah. Moving on, spoke with Uncle about a potential robbery, and planning a robbery with Uncle is a bit like when you're 2 weeks into a group project, the deadline is tomorrow, and you get a message saying, wait, what are we doing? Pulled the wagon to the side and my fingers slipped. Now I know how that guy from the 2 towers felt. We robbed it, ran away, fell off my horse, and we hid in a shed. Killed a guy, Charles showcasing his quick reactions that would make a meerkat quiver in fear. A shootout started, the barn was on fire, and so I decided to share the flames with the enemies. We ran away, again, stealth killed a guard, Uncle did not do that, missed a guy who was right in front of me, and we saved Bill and Charles. On the way back from that fuck up, I came across a couple of guys trying to open a safe. I asked, was it safe to open? Pause for laughter, but then the safe blew up, so I guess it didn't like the pun either. stole the money, stopped by the Gray family, and spoke to Beau about his predicament of not being able to handle things himself. Enrolled myself as an honorary member of the DPT, and set off to make a delivery to his lady friend, praying to God this wasn't how sexting started. Snuck past the Braithwaite guards, and the game turned into Silent Hill. Gave the thing to Penelope, she then gave me something to deliver, ran back to where I thought my horse was, slipped on the riverbank, fell on my face, back to Beau, gave him the thing, and he started panicking as women's rights were around the corner. Beau's cousins arrived, showing their support for the movement the same way the buffet table shows support for your waistline. Fucked around with the cousins like they were newly unboxed squeaker toys, and I was literally any dog alive. The fun sort of ended when the horse got involved though. Anyway, we ran away and Beau gave me some money, stating that his days of getting someone else to solve his problems are far behind him. Made it back to camp to see Lenny floating around like an embarrassing memory that isn't quite repressed enough. He mentioned some guns that are being held nearby, so he went and had a look. Told Lenny to distract him, whilst I crept into position like a van driver who's going for the tailgate Guinness World Record. But ultimately, I strayed too far into the area that it triggered a fucking shootout. It was like staying a minute longer at someone's house than you were supposed to, and they whip out the "you're not welcome here anymore" 9000. We fought our way through. I guess one of the enemies hit the "I'm bored now" button as he jumped onto the machine gun and started shredding things to pieces like a very anxious businessman. Dived into a muddy trench thinking the machine gun identifies its targets like the Predator, suggested he should go see an optician, and we found the stash of weapons. Took the weapons back to camp and decided to keep a rifle even though it was next to useless to me. Abigail told me where the next mission was going to spawn. Hosea and I paid a visit to the Braithwaites with their moonshine, trying to sell it back to them, like when customers ask for a refund after eating everything on their fucking plate. The Braithwaites told us to give away the moonshine at a saloon run by the Greys, because it will really piss them off, starting to feel like a third wheel in a very toxic relationship. Regardless, we started giving away the booze until the EDL arrived claiming we stole their liquor, which we did, and I wanted to adjust their jawline with a shotgun to help their chances in the drinking games to come. Accidentally set fire to the building, as that's what happens when you pour moonshine into a shotgun shell, but there you go. We escaped, met up with Dutch, who had the genius idea to listen to Micah about robbing both the families at the same time. Spoke to Bill about robbing the Valentine bank, and he starts complaining about being made fun of when making mistakes, overlooking the fact that's how you stop people from making fun of you. You want people to stop making fun of you, then stop making mistakes. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk for the socially anxious. We rode to Valentine, walked down the street trying to be less suspicious than a cat in the doorway, entered the vault, grabbed the bank manager and threw him back to last Wednesday. Started beating him a bit too much to the point he couldn't open the vault, restarted the mission, blew up the vaults, grabbed the money, set the sheriff on fire, escaped Valentine and crossed the train tracks, leaving the lawmen completely bamboozled. Even though they could have just waited for the train to pass, then they could have caught us, since we were literally on the other side of it, but there you go. Visited the Downs family to collect the money, and went home. Arrived at the Braithwaites to meet Sean and Hosea. We desperately tried not making any jokes about inbreeding. Sean and I travelled to the Gray's estate in the slowest mode of transport possible that would make elderly drivers seem like they should belong in Formula 1. We came down the main road, and I was told to go hide in the wagon before they saw us. I guess we were just going to pretend that the guards have the same eyesight as Ray Charles, because how the fuck do they not see someone blatantly trying to hide from them, as if he's part of a group being told off by the head teacher. Infiltrated the estate, stabbed a guy, and we prepared to douse the fields in moonshine since they'd been suffering from a drought, so it's time to give them nourishment. After we drenched everything, I started launching fire arrows as if I was starting a medieval village raid. Fought our way through the fiery inferno like Twitter during a political debate, got on the horses and made our escape. Sean and I reached some high ground and looked upon the firestorm we let loose, leading to someone probably hating us with a burning passion. Spoke to Dutch about Trelawny, so Charles and I were sent to check on him, and stick my dick in a keyhole because he went and got himself captured, like mainland Europe in the 1940s. Tracked him for a while and found 2 turnips sitting on their asses. We asked nicely if they could point us to the location of the person they took, and they decided to be annoying. Threatened the guy with my knife. Unknowingly though, this would cause a bit of a glitch as I couldn't punch the information out of him like a piñata. Then the guy ran away during the interrogation and Charles just went on a smoke break. Interestingly enough, the interrogation dialogue was still going even if the situation was the exact opposite.
Tell me where he is. You better tell me now, you son of a bitch?
It's kind of funny shouting at a guy for answers who's around 100 meters away, yet is still shitting himself. Like he's been asked a question during a class he wasn't paying attention in. We found Trelawny and hunted down the bounty hunters that were hiding in the cornfields. And like a lost child in a supermarket looking for their parents, I started the search. Got tied up, Charles threw a knife, and we killed the remaining bounty hunters. Moving on, I met up with John and Javier at the Greys to talk about robbing the horses from the Braithwaites. We arrived, blagged my way into the stable, as if I went into an interview for a company I knew nothing about, grabbed the horses and left with no issue. Got a financial shafting from the horse buyers because John's an idiot, not sure there's a pattern here. Spoke to Trelawny, he spoke of an idea to rob stagecoaches, and that was to ask the station clerk about who's on his shit list. Apparently it's some opera singer that dispensed about one too many dosage of verbal diarrhea, so it's time to steal her belongings. Trelawny gave me a lock breaker and asked me to follow on behind. Snuck up to the back of the carriage, guarded by people who have the same level of perception as someone trying to navigate London using only coffee shops. Left Trelawny to it and went and visited Micah and Dutch. The three of us rode to a meeting with the O'Driscolls to initiate a peace deal, which in this situation is like playing a game of hot potato with a live grenade. Got smacked in the face, woke up at an O'Driscoll camp, ran away, got shot at, and these idiots thought the most convenient way to knock me out is to shoot me point blank in the chest with a double-barrel shotgun. Somehow, I regained consciousness and found myself hung up like a dead pig in a slaughterhouse. And tell you what, listening to Cole's monologue does make you wish the conveyor belt of torture would kick in by now. Anyway, I unlocked the chain, sterilized the file, shoved it in the hole, wiggled it about, sprinkled some gunpowder on it, and gave it a good searing. I guess this is a reflection on the American healthcare system. Snapped a guy's neck, killed another, waited for this turnip to turn around so I could insert a knife into his shoulder blades, got on my horse and escaped. Grew a mustache for an additional health boost, saw a deleted scene from the film Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and went to meet Sean, Bill, and Micah. Walked down the street, Sean opened a doorway to a new dimension with his face. Gunfight broke out, but thanks to my new mustache, I knew I was completely safe. Entered a standoff with the sheriff and the rest of his men as they held Bill hostage, which for Bill might not be for the first time either. But luckily, combined with a sawed-off shotgun, astonishing accuracy, and the possibility I may have misunderstood the spread produced by shotguns, I saved Bill's life. Told Micah and Bill to piss off and go bury Sean. Jack's been kidnapped by the Braithwaites, so we rolled up to their estate as if it was a scene directed by Tarantino. For some reason, I struggled to keep up with the others, like that one short person in the group during a pub crawl. Took out the perimeter guards and entered the house. Found a barricaded door that looks like it's having an emotional breakdown. Broke into the final room, dragged Mrs. Braithwaite down the stairs as we set fire to her family. Well, and her family home. She told us she gave Jack to some Italians, so we left her to it. Back at camp, the agents arrived to preach about order and civilization, whilst Dutch argues he knows what civilization really is, and everyone else is sort of standing in the background, watching the back and forth like a tennis match. After being threatened by the agents, John and I went to secure the next location for the campsite. We killed the two lookouts and entered the house. One guy ran out of ammo, threw his gun at me, told him he could leave, but then I lied. Found another guy trying to coerce me into a fair fight, except he forgot that not everyone is working to the same schedule, and found the last guy who woke up to me entering the room and not the gunshots below. Shot him in the face and dumped the bodies in the nearby swamp. And that's it for chapter 3. I think I stuck to the loadout a lot better than the previous chapters, especially when the game doesn't fuck around with what weapons I should have without me noticing, like a pushy waiter trying to upsell when all you asked was for his opinion. Chapter 4 is next, so let me know if you want to see that, or if you want me to start from scratch again with a different playthrough. Anyway, I'm going to sign off now because I really need a shit.